What is up, everybody? Chris of Midlife Crisis Media here. Welcome to another recent pickups live stream. It's number 93. Next year, we're going to hit 100. That's crazy. But I've been consistently doing these pretty much every month. Sometimes I do it. I take a month off and do 2 months at once. What's up, Peter? You have to put the kids to bed. It's okay, Peter. Family first. I'll still be here. So, yeah, it was a weird month. Finances were a little tight, so I wasn't able to do a lot of the things I wanted to do this month. Church, the Game Grinder, ended up, got married this month, and I was going to go out there for the ceremony and the reception, and it didn't happen because I was kind of broke. What's up, Retro Coop? Welcome, everybody. So yeah, that didn't happen. Yeah, I had to cancel a bunch of. You have no idea how many pre-orders I have on Amazon for movies and games. Had to cancel pretty much half of it. And this was a very heavy movie month for me because it's October. It is spooky season. Halloween is tomorrow, and a lot of these companies really take advantage of this, month and release stacks and stacks of horror movies on home video. And that's pretty much all I have here. But sadly, I had to cancel quite a few of them because just wasn't have the money for it. So very light on the video games this month. I did get a couple of pre-orders in. I had a replacement come in from a company, and I'll talk about that when I get there. And then this last paycheck, I did have some extra money to spend, so I was like, I'll go and see if I can find anything in the wild, and I did. Nothing crazy. But it's mostly movies tonight. A couple of them have been spoiled by the film collection 4K live streams that I've been doing this month. A bunch of the movies that I ordered or that showed up this month fell within the letters that I was discussing in October. So you're going to see some repeats if you watch those streams. But outside of that, there's a lot of really cool stuff here. But like I said, be prepared. It's going to be very film heavy. Wet the old whistle first. So let's get into it. Nothing outside of the ordinary. Figures or D&D stuff or anything like that this month. Like I said, very tight on the cash. But I'll start with the ones that I've already discussed in previous streams. I know I've talked about that and that. And the rest are new. Okay, so the ones that I've already discussed in previous live streams were Maxine. This is the third film in the X trilogy. It's X, Pearl, and then Maxine. And all three of these movies are like of a different horror genre. So X is a straight up slasher film. It's a group of 20-somethings go out to like Texas and rent out this farmhouse to make a porno. And the people who own the farmhouse that's being filmed in it's this old couple, this old woman named Pearl, who is like always super horny, even though she's like 90 years old. Seeing these young people having the whoopee, like drives her crazy, and she goes on like a killing spree because she's nuts. And Maxine, who's the main character here, is the lead in the porno film, and she's the one who fights back when Pearl starts attacking everybody. And it's a decent slasher movie. It takes place in the 1970s, so it's got this weird Texas Chainsaw Massacre feel. Pearl is a prequel to that follows the killer, who was the old lady, when she was younger, back in like the 1930s or 40s. And like you could see that the seeds are there. Like she is kind of nuts. She is crazy. She's always horny, and like she's been fighting it, and this is her letting loose. And it's like that's the psychological horror film in the series, and it's really good. It's probably my favorite in the trilogy. Mia Goth here, who plays Maxine, played the old version of Pearl in X as well as Maxine, and plays the young version of Pearl in the Pearl film. And this is the direct sequel to X, which jumps forward like 5 years after X happened, and Maxine is now working in Hollywood, and she's trying to make it into actual films, and someone is stalking her and killing all the people she knows. And this is the whodunit horror movie where it's like a mystery. Who is the killer? Who is it amongst her? Is it somebody amongst her friends? Is it someone she knows? Is it just like a crazy person? And it makes fun of Hollywood about as much as horror movie stuff. It's good. I like it. It's probably my least favorite of the three, but I'm not saying that it is bad in any way. It is still very enjoyable. It's just I prefer Pearl for the whole psychological aspect of it. And Mia Goth is like powerhouse performance in Pearl. She's good in all three, but Pearl is the one that I will probably watch the most. Another one that I've already talked about in a previous stream is Needful Things. This is a Stephen King adaptation that came out in the early 90s, I want to say. And I saw it once when it came out on home video. And I thought it was okay. It wasn't great. Never watched it again, though, because it felt very short for what is going on in the movie. Like, there's a lot going on here, but the movie felt like a lot was taken out. And it turned out I was right. There was an extended cut that ended up broadcasting on television or something. And from what I understand, it made the movie 10 times better. Like, they had to cut all this information and all these scenes out for time. And it didn't have anything to do with violence or gore or anything like that. It was like character moments and setups and stuff like that. They had to cut as much out as they possibly could to get it down to a manageable length. And this has not only the theatrical cut, but also that extended cut on here, which I do believe is only on the Blu-ray because they did not remaster that in 4K, but that is fine. Blu-ray is fine. At least I get to see it in HD. This has Ed Harris, Bonnie Bedelia, J.T. Walsh, Amanda Plummer, and Max von Sydow, who basically plays the devil who comes to this small town and opens up an antique shop. But the thing is, when you buy something in the antique shop, you basically sell him your soul. And by the end of the movie, so many people have done so that the town kind of goes crazy. Ed Harris plays the town sheriff, and he's trying to deal with it. And like I said, I enjoyed it. It felt like there was more to it, and it turns out there was. So I need to sit down and watch that extended cut. And the other one I've already discussed in a film collection live stream is The Ring. This is the remake that came out in the early 2000s with Naomi Watts. It's based on a Japanese horror movie called Ringu, which I saw like a week before this came out in the theaters. A friend and I were really interested by the trailer. We're like, that looks kind of like a cool twist on a horror movie, like, ghost story kind of thing. And we found out it's based on a Japanese film. So my friend tracked down a VCD, if you remember VCDs, from Japan of it, and he ended up importing it over. We watched it, and we were like, that's a pretty rad concept for a movie. Like, it's really well... Excuse me, I got the hiccups now. It's really well done. It's actually kind of spooky. I wouldn't say it's like scary, but it just has like this really cool atmosphere to it. And we were like, this is rad. Can't wait to see the remake and see what they do with it. And then like the reviews came out, and the friend that I had seen Ringu with loved Ebert, Roger Ebert, and always listened to him. So like Ebert did not like the remake and gave it like a 1.5 stars or something like that. And when I went to go and pick up my friend so we can go and see it, we'd already made plans to go and see it. I get there and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to go see the movie. He's like, I'll go out to dinner with you, and then you can go and see it by yourself. I'm like, all right, fine. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and see this movie. And he actually kind of went like, well, I'm like, dude, make up your own damn mind. Don't let critics tell you what's what. If it looked good to you, watch it, make up your own damn mind. He's like, okay. And when it was over, he was like, yeah, okay. I liked it. I loved it. I actually think it's an improvement on the Japanese movie. They really amped up what's going on in the movie. So the whole thing about this is, if you have not seen it, I'm pretty sure everyone has. There's a cursed video cassette, a VHS tape that if you watch it, you have 7 days to live. Like, you're going to die in 7 days. And the only way you can survive is if you you get somebody else to watch that VHS tape, and the curse is now passed on to them, and you are now safe. But people don't usually figure that out. The lead character, Naomi Watts, watches the tape. She's like a reporter. She finds out about the tape, hunts it down because she starts hearing about people dying from this thing, and watches it herself. And she's trying to unravel the mystery of it. And they actually get into the history of the tape in this one, into the history of the girl that is the cause of all this that's going on. They don't really do that in the original. It's just kind of, it is what it is. And the sequels kind of clear that up. And here they actually try to make everything understandable and clear. So the rules are very clear. You know what's coming, why it's coming. And it's just really, really well made. And it is actually, I think, scarier than the original. So had to have that. Absolutely loved it. Here's all the new stuff that I have not talked about in previous streams. The original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the black and white one that came out in the 1950s, I want to say 1956. And this movie has been remade over and over again. So there was a remake in the 70s, which I do own on 4K, with Donald Sutherland and Leonard Nimoy, which is good. It is graphic for a PG-rated movie. It is pretty gross, and I think I've talked about that in previous stream. Then there is Body Snatchers, which came out in the 90s, which takes place on an army base. That one is very R-rated and probably my favorite of them all because it's very well done and very, like, it gets under your skin. It's, like, really creepy. And then there is another remake that came out in the 2000s that has Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman in it, just called Invasion. And that is, if you ask me, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. But since I already have the other two that I really like, and I do enjoy this one too, I decided to pick this up. And usually black and white films on 4K look fantastic because 4K enhances the black and white levels of films, and that's what this movie is made up of. So every black and white movie that I've watched in 4K has looked amazing. So had to snag this from Kino Lorber. It actually has a decent amount of extras here. And if you don't know, alien pods come down from outer space and start to duplicate people, and you don't know who is an alien and who is a human, and that's kind of the point. And it's basically like a subtext about communism. Like, you never know who's a red. At that time, that was the terminology being used. Like, who among you is a communist? So fun idea for a horror movie. I love the ones that try to, like, have some kind of subtext like that. Really, I get to sink my teeth into stuff like that, and I love it. Let's see, what else? Another black and white movie. This is interesting. I never thought in a million years this would be on 4K, but leave it to Kino Lorber for doing this. And that's The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This is a silent film from Germany that came out in the 1920s, I want to say. Let me see. This is like one of the earliest like horror movies. This came out like in the 1920s or either late 1920s, early 1930s. 1920 came out in 1920. That is nuts. And it's about this somnambulist. So there's this doctor who has like this living zombie guy locked up in a cabinet, and he sicks him on people that piss him off. And I never would have watched this in a million years. Didn't even sound interesting to me when I heard about it, like when I was a kid. My dad, I think, brought it up at least once. But when I was in college and I was in my film study class, this was the first movie we watched in class. The teacher was like, if you have a thing about reading movies, because silent movies, they are silent. So whenever somebody is supposed to speak or something, the words appear on screen, the dialogue appears on screen, so you know what's going on. Like, you see the characters go like, and then what they're saying will appear on screen for like a good 7 or 8 seconds. And that's the way the whole movie works. And then somebody back in the day when this was playing in theaters, there's usually somebody in the theater playing on a keyboard or like an organ or something to have music accompanying the movie. And this features music from Jeff Beal, who used to do music for movie trailers. I had a set of 2 CDs, I think it was. That was all the music that Jeff Beal had ever composed for movie trailers. It's in 2.1 stereo and 5.1 surround also, which is cool. And then also a 2014 orchestral score by a German band. And then another musical score by Paul D. Miller and DJ Spooky. So there's 3 different musical tracks on here. That is cool. It makes me want to watch it 3 times to see what each offers. Be kind of like the Metropolis that came out, and there was like a techno soundtrack, and then there was like an original orchestral one too on the Blu-ray I had. But yeah, it's a horror movie. Like I said, this zombie dude gets like sicked on people that piss off the doctor. And I remember being really cool. It's very expressionist. Like, the cameras are always at weird angles. The sets are bizarre. So it's like German expressionism. It's really interesting, and I loved it. It was like the first time I actually sat there and watched a movie like that, and was like, okay, like I start understanding like the visual language of things, and like it changed the way I looked at movies a little bit. It's kind of cool. And I did have a DVD of this back in the day. Got rid of all my DVDs, obviously, most of them at least. So I'm glad to see that popped up on 4K. I will never get rid of that one. Let's see, what else do I have? So naturally, because it is October, Shout Factory / Scream Factory went kind of crazy releasing horror movies this month, and I picked up, I want to say, or I pre-ordered at least, I think all of them, and I think at least I kept the pre-orders for all of them. I don't think there was anything that I missed that wasn't something that I would never buy anyway. So we'll start with the ones that I've owned previously and I've talked about in other streams. So one of them was Death Becomes Her, and I definitely like this artwork a lot. I wonder why. But does it have the original theatrical one sheet in here too as like a flipper? It does not. That's kind of the original artwork where it's Meryl Streep, Bruce Willis, and Goldie Hawn. So it's like a horror comedy by Robert Zemeckis that originally was supposed to be the first Tales from the Crypt movie, but because it starred Meryl Streep, Bruce Willis, and Goldie Hawn, Zemeckis was talked out of making it a Tales from the Crypt movie, so they made it its own thing. And I think actually having Tales from the Crypt attached to it, since the TV show was super popular at the time that this came out, probably would have brought more butts to the seats because this did not do well. So it's about an aging actress, Meryl Streep, who has married a plastic surgeon, that's Bruce Willis, that she stole away from her best friend, which was Goldie Hawn, like 20 years earlier. And between when that happened and currently in the movie, with 20 years has passed, Goldie Hawn has like gone into a complete depression. She's like this, like huge. She's been doing nothing but eating. She has like 50 cats, and she's like the saddest person you'd ever see on earth, kind of thing. Well, then one day she shows up on Meryl Streep's doorstep, and she has turned into this beautiful woman, and they cannot figure out how. Well, it turns out it's magic. So Goldie Hawn found this witch who makes this brew that if you drink it, it will make you like basically the most perfect person you can possibly be. But she has one rule. She's like, you have to take care of yourself. Meryl Streep, since she's like this aging actress and no one wants to hire her anymore because she's getting older, finds out about this, goes and does it herself. And then the two women end up just fighting each other over Bruce Willis now that they are, youthful and have like the, vigor and all that kind of stuff. And turns out the whole thing is you are undead. You look great, but you are now undead. You cannot die. That's why she says you're immortal. So the taking care of yourself part was make sure that you don't kill yourself, because that's when shit goes wrong. So they kill each other over and over and over again, and the damage stays. And they start to fall apart. And it's really kind of funny, the things they do to kill each other over and over again. Like, it gets really twisted and is perfect for Tales from the Crypt because it's got that tongue-in-cheek feel to it. And it's really fun. It's just nobody saw it because the title doesn't really, like, what does it mean? I guess it confused people. If it said Tales from the Crypt presents Death Becomes Her, I'm pretty sure more butts would have gone in the seats, just like with Demon Knight. So had to pick that up. It's very fun. Also, I already owned Shocker, so I upgraded this. This is Wes Craven's attempt to make another horror icon like Freddy Krueger. He felt that Freddy Krueger had basically lost what made him, or what he liked about Freddy when he created him, has been lost over the years with all the sequels, kind of diluting him. So he wanted to make a new one that he can keep control of. Sad thing is, nobody gave a shit at this point. So it's a slasher. It's weird. It's like a slasher horror action thriller. It's weird. So there's a serial killer named Horace Pinker who kills like entire families, gets caught by the cops and electrocuted for his crimes. And the thing is, he worships this like electricity demon that grants him the power to use electricity to continue killing in its name. And so he can, like, because we have an electric charge in our body, he can jump between our bodies and kind of possess us until all of our energy is used up. Then he has to go and find somebody else to jump into. He can also jump in and out of plugs, TVs, video cameras, telephones, all that kind of stuff. And it like starts off kind of cool where it's about the slasher thing, but once like the supernatural stuff starts to jump into it, it gets bizarre and crazy. And like a Barca-Lounger comes to life at one point. Like a kid is sitting in a Barca-Lounger, the armrests come to life and wrap them around the guy, and then where the headrest is, two eyeballs open up and start like looking around. the footrest becomes feet. It's like, what is happening in this damn movie? It's nuts. Like, it's Wes Craven on cocaine, essentially. I loved this one back in the day. It has a great soundtrack that's like all metal artists. It's like AC/DC, Megadeth, Anthrax, that kind of thing. And they play those songs a lot. And that's really rad. But I remember like back in the day, it bombed. Like nobody gave a shit. It was like one of the movies that kind of almost ruined Wes Craven's career until he made like, I guess this career was like on the decline until Scream came out. But watched this last night. Like it showed up yesterday and I watched it last night. And while I was watching it, I kept finding myself falling asleep because it's really super cheesy and it's not acted very well and it's kind of stupid at times and it's like trying way too hard to be a vehicle for a horror icon type character like Freddy Krueger. So like it's really a tedious movie and there's so many things going on in it. There's like, so like I said, you got the serial killer thing and then you've got the supernatural thing. You've got a ghost girlfriend. You've got jumping in and out of electricity. It's like there's like 50 different things going on in this movie, and none of them are done particularly well. But it's entertaining in like a schlocky, bad, it's so bad it's good kind of way. And it does come with quite a lot of extras, especially for like Scream Factory usually did not put a ton of extras on their Blu-rays that they release, their Blu-ray collector's editions. But with these 4Ks, they've actually kind of been going all out, so it's kind of cool. What about Death Becomes Her? Yeah, this is like the amount of extras I kind of expect from a Scream Factory release. Not that. So, another one that I already had from Scream Factory that I upgraded is Land of the Dead. This is the 4th Romero Dead movie. So you have Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, and then after this you have Diary of the Dead, and then Survival of the Dead, which is, I think, one of the worst things I've ever seen. This, I think, is one of the most fun and entertaining movies in the series since Dawn of the Dead. Like, Dawn of the Dead is really entertaining. This one is so fast-paced and is doing a lot of really cool things, and actually, like Dawn of the Dead, trying to say something at the same time, it is like I would call this like a crowd pleaser. They played this at the Music Box of Horrors, which is this 24-hour movie marathon I used to go to at a theater down the street here, where they would play everything on film. And the year that they played this, like people were cheering and hooting and hollering, and usually that does not happen. And like I said, crowd pleaser. So it takes place like, I want to say decades after part 3. So decades after Day of the Dead, the world is basically run by the dead. And there's this walled-in city that is run by Dennis Hopper, who is like Trump. And all the rich people are allowed to stay in this big, massive building that they have in the center of the town. And everyone else that is not rich has to fight for scraps around it. And it's like class warfare going on at the same time that there's these zombies trying to kill everybody. Well, at the same time, the zombies are evolving. So the zombies start to develop language. Not like talking, but they start to be able to understand each other somehow, like with like gestures and the sounds that they make, like the moans. And like an army forms led by this one zombie that they start calling Big Daddy. And it's like, we're going to march up against, the living and take out that city. And it's like, the same time you have this class warfare thing going on inside the city, you kind of have it happening outside too. It's like the masses who've been kept out are trying to get in. And it's really well done. It's funny. It's got tons of action. It's a fantastic soundtrack by Reinhold Heil and Johnny Klimek, who did the music for Run Lola Run. And it's got this like industrial vibe to it, which I love. And yeah, it's gory and it's graphic. This also has 2 versions of the movie on here. You have the theatrical cut and the unrated cut, which is the version I would say to watch. It adds back in some plot, which was needed. And I saw this in the theater opening night, and I don't think a lot of people knew what to make of it. They weren't expecting it to try to say something as well as see people get ripped apart and intestines flying. So a couple of my friends were like, I don't know how to feel about that. But then on a second watch, they're like, okay, I get it now. It's fantastic. This is one of, like, I'm going to say my second favorite film in the franchise. I absolutely love it. And it has a decent cast too. Dylan Baker, who had his own television show in the early 2000s too. I can't remember what it was. But Asia Argento, Dario Argento's daughter, who was in Triple X, is in here also. Dennis Hopper, like I said. Robert Joy. John Leguizamo, who is like a runner for the rich people. He wants to get into that building so badly that all the rich people live in that he does odd jobs for them by going outside the city and looking for supplies for them, like their food, like champagne and shit. And he's eventually thinking he's going to gather up enough money to buy his way into that. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, "You're crazy. That's never going to happen. Look at you," kind of thing. It's really, really good. More than just a horror movie. And then the other one from Shout Factory that I got that I did not previously own, so this is not a replacement, is The Stepfather. This is it's not, the sequels to this turned into slasher films. This is more of a thriller, and it's really creepy. My dad rented this, and because it isn't super violent, like I said, it's not really a slasher, I was allowed to watch this before I lifted the horror movie ban on myself in like 88 or whatever it was. So Terry O'Quinn, who you might recognize from Lost, is a kind of like a serial killer. He basically creates an identity, finds someone to marry who has a family already, who has kids, and like puts on this show that he's like this caring guy, ends up getting them to marry her. And the moment they start to disappoint him in any way, he starts looking for a new family to do this to. Like, we're talking changing his identity, his looks. And once he has found that family, he murders the one he is currently involved with and moves on. And he has not been caught. Like, they talk about it in the movie. I think he's done it like 8 times or something like that. And it follows him on the current family he's working on. And it's really creepy. Like, he seems like the nicest freaking guy ever, but then you start to see like the little darkness like popping in every once in a while. And then he just goes completely crazy once he realizes that the daughter and the family he's married into is not a big fan of his. And he's like, well, you know what, this won't do. And it's really well made. The guy who directed Dreamscape directed this, and it's really well done. It's well acted. Like I said, it's not super gory. Like I said, it's more like a thriller. Whenever bad things happen, you usually just see the aftermath. And it's a good movie, like a genuinely good movie. The sequels, on the other hand, don't watch them, because those are the ones that just devolved into generic slasher films, where it's like, how many people can I kill before I kill my family kind of thing. Next up, these are replacements, so I'll talk about them. So one we have is Stardust. This is a steel book that I picked up for about the same price as a standard 4K. And this is by, oh God, what's his name? God damn it. Matthew Vaughn directed Kick-Ass, the first Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class, the Kingsman movies, Layer Cake. This is his first, I want to say, really big budget movie. I want to say he did this after Layer Cake. I think this was right after Layer Cake. And it stars Claire Danes, the guy who plays Daredevil now. I cannot remember his name, and I cannot read this because I'm basically blind. Whatever. The guy who plays Daredevil now plays the lead in this. Claire Danes is basically a shooting star that crashed on in this fantasy land that this movie takes place in. And Daredevil finds her and like falls in love with her, but he's trying to woo this woman played by Sienna Guillory, who played Jill Valentine in Resident Evil Apocalypse. She's from this upper class family, and he's trying to woo her to become his wife, and she ain't having it because he's the lower class. And he sees this shooting star crash, and he goes to find it, thinking that it's something they can give to her to win her heart. It turns out it's a girl, and it's Claire Danes, and she's like this mystical being kind of thing. And he is trying to keep her away from this witch, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who needs to like suck the life force out of Claire Danes in order to stay young. And her and her sisters can stay young. And he starts to end up falling in love with Claire Danes' character instead of Sienna Guillory. He realizes that she's trash. And De Niro's in this, and he plays like this gay pilot or pirate guy who is probably one of the best characters in the movie. And he doesn't play it like you would think. He's kind of subtle about it, and it makes it so much fun to watch because it's something you would never see him do in a million years. And I was glad that he was willing to do that. It's a really, really fun movie, and it's based on a Neil Gaiman story. It's really, really well done and acted and everything. I really enjoy it, and it has a fantastic song that gets played over the end credits. So I had to snag I can't even talk right now. I had to snag a copy of this. First time on 4K. Well, duh, most of these is the first time on 4K. This Daredevil isn't blind in that movie. He's blind to love. Another upgrade of mine was V for Vendetta. This has actually been out for quite a while. And it's one of those movies that like I had pre-ordered at one point and had to cancel it for some reason or another. And I just kept on putting off buying it. And then like at the beginning or like this last paycheck, I was just kind of like, well, now I actually have some money I can spend. What have I been putting off? And I was like, well, V for Vendetta. I just keep on saying no. Luckily, this is like $10 now, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But this is based off of what's his name? The guy who did Watchmen. God damn it. I cannot think of his name. God damn it. The guy who wrote the Watchmen comic book or graphic novel. So it's like 1984, Big Brother is watching you kind of environment. And there is a rebel out there that's named V, and it's played by Hugo Weaving. It actually wasn't Hugo Weaving when they shot this. It was James Purefoy, who was Mila Jovovich's like fake husband in the first Resident Evil film. And I guess they fired him when they had to do the overdubbing of the movie, when they had to do the looping, and brought in Hugo Weaving to do the voiceover instead, because the guy never really takes his mask off. He's always got this Guy Fawkes mask on. So you never really see his face. So it's James Purefoy physically in the movie, and it's Hugo Weaving doing the voice. And Natalie Portman is this woman that gets involved with him and actually like starts this revolution to overthrow the government. It's really well done. It's a lot of fun. The action scenes are fantastic. I love the visual style of it. The guy who directed this was the second unit director for the Wachowskis in the Matrix films. And they basically said, you're so good at your job, we're going to give you a job to direct a movie that we're going to produce for you. And this was it. And it worked. It made a ton of money. And the guy ended up making Ninja Assassin, which I love too. And I think he's still working as a director, unless he's gone back to being an assistant director. I don't know. But really good movie. I like that one quite a bit. Saw that opening night with friends in the theater, and the theater went crazy. Not something I expected. Natalie Portman's really good in it. It's a movie she shaved her head for. Okay, older stuff. We'll get to the newer stuff later. One that I was glad okay, so I talk about those I talk about the boutique labels quite a bit on the channel when I'm doing like the pickups or the film collection live streams. There's like a lot of overseas boutique labels like Arrow, which is in the UK. You have Via Vision and Umbrella, which are in Australia, and a couple others. And I have movies from all of these companies. And one of them, don't remember the name of it. It's not Umbrella or Via Vision or any of them. I can't remember the name. But they put out a special edition of this, and it was like $100. And I was like, I like the movie. I do. I don't $100 like it. And I was like really, really torn because I have not owned a copy of this since DVD, I want to say. I think I had a DVD of this. And it was not a very good quality DVD. It was in pan and scan, which was bullshit because of who released this. This is released by HBO. And they never gave a shit about what they put out. They just put product out and whatever, you get what you get kind of thing back then. So I was like really debating buying this 4K box set of it. And I was like, I don't think I can justify $100 for this movie. Like, I just can't. So I put it off. And plus shipping and all that would have made it more than that. So I said, okay, I'm just going to have to pass this one over. Well, luckily, Warner Brothers and HBO were like, okay, we'll just release one of our own because the remastering has already been done in 4K by these guys. We'll just release like a bare bones version of it over here. And I'm like, I'll take it. And that is The Hitcher. This is by Robert Harmon. I can't remember what else he directed, but he was kind of a big name in the 80s. But this is written by Eric Red, who ended up directing Near Dark, which is one of my favorite vampire movies. He wrote Blue Steel for what's her name? He wrote Near Dark. Catherine Bigelow directed it. He wrote Blue Steel. Catherine Bigelow directed it, but he ended up directing, and he directed Body Parts, which I think is super fun, old school horror movie. And then he also did Bad Moon, which is his take on a werewolf movie, which I thought was just kind of okay. But the guy's got a really twisted mind, but he seems really cool. I'm actually friends with him on Facebook, which is kind of weird if it's actually him. And it is exactly what you think it is, an evil hitchhiker. And it's Rutger Hauer playing the hitchhiker. C. Thomas Howell is one of those. I don't know if they still do it, but some guy bought a used car and is having it driven from wherever the used car was to where the guy is who bought it, which is like cross country essentially. And C. Thomas Howell's the guy paid to do it. And he's so lonely and bored while he's driving cross country, he ended up picking up this hitchhiker, Rutger Hauer. Turns out to be a psychopath who just wants to kill the people that pick him up. And C. Thomas Howell is one of the only people that manages to get away from the guy. It's like only one ever. And Rutger Hauer starts to get like a fixation on him and is trying to break him now, not just kill him, but he wants to like break him psychologically. And it's very effed up. It's very violent. Something horribly wrong happens to a person in this movie involving a semi truck and a rope. And it's like, it's really good. They remade this in the 2000s, and it was one of the worst things ever. It was one of those movies that did not need to be remade because they essentially didn't do anything with the remake differently. It was the exact same thing. It's just now there's the two leads have been flipped. So, C. Thomas Howell's character is now a woman, and the woman that C. Thomas Howell falls in love with is now a man. And that's the only difference. It's the exact same movie otherwise. So no point. But this is really well made. It's creepy. It's awesome. The acting is actually pretty fantastic. And I'm not a C. Thomas Howell fan. So here's one I have never seen. And I bought this because of a sale that was going on the Kino Lorber website. They had 60% off a bunch of their 4Ks and Blu-rays and stuff. And I was going through the list, and I ended up buying two. Which ones were they? Invasion of the Body Snatchers was one, and Needful Things was the other. And I was like, I want to get, one more. And there wasn't anything that either I already owned or I wasn't interested in. So I'm getting toward the end of the list, and I see this one pop up, and I'm like, I've always been curious about that. It's from somebody I admire, and plus, I always have like this horror movie thing that me and some friends do, before Halloween, where we sit around and watch horror movies all day because we can't get into the freaking Music Box of Horrors because it always sells out, right away, and we can never get tickets. So I'm like, this would be something fun to bring over, and we can all sit down and watch. We didn't watch it. And that is Clive Barker's Underworld. So from what I understand, this is not really a horror movie. It's more like a science fiction-y thriller. But I remember seeing the posters for it up all over the place when I would go to the video stores in our area as a child. And I was always curious about it because the posters were really cool looking. And one of those things, my parents were like, no, there's no way in hell you're watching that because, we know about Rawhead Rex. We rented that. And you're definitely not watching that. And that's a Clive Barker joint. We know about Hellraiser. You're not watching that. So this was off the table. So I'll just read the back since I've never actually seen it. It says, from the strange imagination of Clive Barker comes the neo-noir underworld, a realm of hidden dimensions, dark, dangerous waters, and a labyrinth of tunnels inhabited by the ghoulish victims of a cruel chemical experiment. When high-class hooker Nicole is kidnapped, businessman Hugo Motherskill, hires her ex-lover, the hard-boiled gumshoe Ray Bain, to find her. Bain traces her disappearance to the diabolical Dr. Savari, who supplies a white powder to a secret cabal of mutant sewer dwellers. Under the city, out of sight, they will wait. Plunge, if you dare, into the spine-tingling, neon-drenched underworld directed by George Pavlo, who also directed Rawhead Rex, which is another Clive Barker movie. So I need to sit down and watch it. And like I said, if it sucks, it was $15. So I'm like, I'm not worried about it. If it sucks, I'll give it to my brother, give it to someone who would rather have it, or sell it. I don't know. But it doesn't have a whole lot of extras on it, which is kind of sad. But it looks interesting. Like, I love that artwork. That artwork is fantastic. So we'll see how it goes. But this one's the only stars in this movie are Steven Berkoff, who was the bad guy in Rambo First Blood Part 2 and the bad guy in the first Beverly Hills Cop, and Denholm Elliott, who was the idiot owner of the college that Indiana Jones worked at. So he's the You see him a little bit in the first Indiana Jones movie, but he's mostly in the third one where he's like the dopey guy that just keeps on getting himself into trouble trying to keep up with everybody else. Like, the pen is mightier than the sword. Him. So, cool. Sure. This is cool that I was able to snag this. So I talked about it when I was talking about Run Lola Run, I think last week, that I was really surprised that I was able to get a copy of Run Lola Run separately because Sony releases like these limited edition box sets of specific movies, like 10 movies in these box sets. I think there's been 3 sets of these things so far. And the only way you can get the movies in those box sets is if you buy that box set. So the second series in the box sets it had one movie in it that I was interested in, and none of the others I was interested in at all. And that movie was Run Lola Run. And I was like, I'm not spending $200 on a box set just so I can have a copy of Run Lola Run. You can eat a dick. I'm like, I guess I'm not going to have Run Lola Run on 4K. I'll live with it. Well, I guess the demand for it separate was so high that they ended up giving it its own separate release, which was great for me since I love that movie. But this one did not. So the recent third volume of that box set series had at least 2 movies in it that I was interested in. And like I said, you can only get them that way unless the demand is high. Well, the demand is not high for this because it's kind of an unknown thing. Luckily, someone decided to sell their copy of it from that box set. So they basically bought the box set and parsed out all the movies separately and are trying to make their money back and more by selling these for like $20 a pop or whatever, $30 a pop. And I was able to get a copy of The City of Lost Children. This is by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who directed Alien Resurrection and Amélie. I think he won an Oscar for Amélie. There's actually a video game based on this movie for the PlayStation 1, which I own, which is like playing a Resident Evil game. It's like got the tank controls and everything and the fixed angles and all that. And it's by Psygnosis. And Psygnosis was a company I was trying to get all their games for a while at least. And it's basically, there is no plot. It's like a lot of really insane visuals. And the main star is freaking Ron Perlman. So he plays like this guy from the circus. He's like the strong man from the circus, but he's dumb as a post. And he befriends this little girl who's like homeless. And all of her little homeless friends have been kidnapped and brought to this like laboratory to be experimented on by this mad scientist guy who's on the cover here who can't dream. And he's trying to find out why he can't by invading everyone else's dreams and trying to insert them into his own. And it kind of like, it's nuts. He's got like clones of one character that work for him. It's the dude who was in the wheelchair in Alien Resurrection. It's him who's the clone. And they're like his Igor, but there's like 50 of them or whatever. And like they all feel the same thing at the same time. So if one cries, they all cry. And it's like the young girl befriending Ron Perlman's strongman character and convincing him to help her find all of her friends. And then you have to go into this lab and it's just the weirdest shit ever. It's kind of like a comedy. It's kind of like a thriller. It's kind of science fiction-y. It's fantasy. It's a lot of weird shit. And it's mostly just visuals and music. And I love it. We had a copy of this at the video store I worked at. And a lot of people would come back and complain about it and be like, what the F was that damn movie I just watched? Like, how did you not tell me that this movie was going to be like that? I'm like, you rented it, not me. But I eventually got curious and I rented it because I remember seeing the trailers for it on some of the other VHS tapes we had at the store. And I was like, that looks interesting, but whatever. It's French. So eventually I brought it home and I watched it and I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on in this movie, but it looks amazing. Like just everything about it, set design, costumes, the special effects, everything is just top notch and it's bizarre, but I love it. So this, I think, will benefit greatly from being on 4K. I need to watch it again. Other older things. So these two just showed up today. Came home from work, and they're sitting on my stoop. This one is a replacement for a movie I had on Blu-ray, and that is Zodiac. This is a David Fincher movie, probably one of his lesser-known movies. This one just kind of came and went. I don't think anybody gave this one the time of day when it came out. It just kind of slipped under the radar because I always make an effort to go and see every single. God damn it! I just said his fucking name. David Fincher. I definitely try to make an effort to go out and see every single David Fincher movie I possibly can that's playing theatrically. The only two that I've missed were this and The Social Network. Because every time I would go and try to go and see The Social Network, something would happen and I couldn't do it. With this, it came and went so fast I never got a chance to go and see it. But it's basically about the Zodiac Killer, and it's about a reporter played by Jake Gyllenhaal who kind of becomes obsessed with the clues when everybody else has given up on trying to figure out who it is. And he's not a reporter. Robert Downey Jr. is the reporter. Gyllenhaal is, I think, an artist that works at the same paper who is obsessed with puzzles, and he starts trying to figure out the cipher that the Zodiac Killer uses with the notes that he leaves with the bodies or whatever. And Ruffalo, if I remember correctly, is a cop. And it's like a procedural, but it's really well shot. There's like a really interesting shot of, I think it's when the Zodiac is like creeping on somebody in his car, and the camera it's almost like a drone shot before drones were a thing. So it's like an aerial shot looking straight down at the city streets, and the camera is like locked onto the car. So as the car is moving, the camera's moving the exact same pace. If the car makes a right turn, the camera does a turn. So the camera is always right in the center of the frame, no matter what is going on or whatever the car is doing. Like I said, if it turns, the frame turns with it, and it's really, really cool. Visually, it's fantastic. It's a little long. There is like an extended cut of this, which I do believe is on here. Yeah, disc 1 is the feature film in 4K. Disc 2 is the director's cut. So, hell yeah. Like I said, that just showed up. And then this is another weird one that I didn't even realize was out. This is from Arrow Video. Apparently they did one of those big box set limited editions that I usually buy of their movies, but I don't think I would have bought the limited edition of this, even if I knew about it, because I like it, but I don't like it that much. But I was putzing around on Amazon yesterday, and I was like, oh, I forgot, that thing was coming out. I remember hearing about it, but I never really looked into it. I'm like, oh, okay, and it's not even that expensive, so I'll just order it, and it showed up today. And that is Mute Witness. So this came out when I was working at the video store in the mid-'90s, and it's a thriller, and it's about this deaf girl who is working on a movie in Russia. It's an American movie being filmed in Russia. They're at a Russian film studio using it because it's cheap. And she works for the special effects department, and she ends up getting locked in one night. And while she's wandering around the building trying to find a way out, she stumbles upon a bunch of the crew members making a snuff film on the set that they use. And they end up starting to chase her around the whole place, and she ends up getting out of the building, and it's like this long thriller chase film of them trying to kill her before she tells anybody about what they were doing. And it's really well made, and she can't really communicate with anybody because, number one, she's in a country that does not speak English very well, and number two, she can't speak because she's deaf, and she has to use sign language, and it's kind of hard. So I always thought it was a really interesting twist on one of these types of movies, so I really, really enjoyed it back in the day. I have not watched it since the 90s, so I'm wondering if it'll still hold up, but I mean, it must if people are releasing a 4K upgrade of this, because I don't even know if this came out on Blu-ray. I never even heard of it on Blu-ray. And it has a ton of extras on it, which is surprising for something that was like an art house film from the 90s. I remember we only had one copy of this at the video store I worked at, and it rented a lot, and I rented it, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, and here are the new movies that the new releases that I've picked up this month, or I pre-ordered. And then one of them took me quite a while to get a copy of it, which is kind of bullshit. So we'll start off with Quiet Place Day 1. I've enjoyed the other two Quiet Place movies. This third film is actually the prequel that starts when the alien invasion began and kind of shows you. It doesn't have the same characters in it. You follow around Lupita Nyong'o's character here, who is dying of cancer. And when the alien invasion happens, like the convalescence home that she is living in, everybody gets taken to see a Broadway show in New York. And while they're there, the invasion begins, and they're kind of like stuck in the city. And she befriends, I can't remember what his name is, Joseph Quinn, who's from Stranger Things Season 4, and is now going to play Johnny Storm in the new Fantastic Four movie, who is also a survivor of the initial attack, and they realize pretty quickly that making noise attracts the aliens, so let's do everything we possibly can to not draw them to us and survive and get out of the city. But she has a emotional support cat with her, and I find it very hard to believe that a cat is that chill during all this shit going on in this movie and never make a meow or meow once. Like, no. It's cool, though. The cat is really rad in the movie. The cat does some cool stuff. But it just feels like it meanders for a little while. It doesn't. I mean, it's not nearly as good as the other two movies, if you ask me. And like Lupita Nyong'o's character, since she thinks she's dying, she is dying. She's like, well, now that I'm back in my hometown in like the city, instead of like the burbs where the convalescence home was, she wants to go back to her home borough and like see everything for one last time before she dies. And it's like her trying to do that instead of dealing with the apocalypse. But I mean, it's good. I enjoy it, but like I said, I wish there was more to it. Actually, I wish we kind of got a sequel to to the second movie instead of this, but it's really good. But there is this one scene where Joseph Quinn is like, I'm going to go out and find some supplies. And then he comes across like a nest of the aliens. And it's like, why would you even go into the area? Like, just walk past. And no, he's like, no, I'm going to investigate. And he basically puts himself in harm's way for no reason other than for us to see like some new information about the aliens. I'm like, that was dumb. But it's still pretty good. Next up is Godzilla Cross Kong, The New Empire. I've been a big fan of these MonsterVerse movies with the Godzilla and Kong characters since they started. I will admit that this is probably my least favorite out of all of them. This one just feels kind of unnecessary. It repeats a lot that happened in Godzilla vs. Kong. So they do the whole Hollow Earth thing again. They repeat information that you already know. They go to the same places you've already been, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, there's also this big race of idiot Kongs living down there that are like following this one." So there's like this leader giant ape character down there who was like enslaved all these other apes, and like when you think that he's going to be this big hulking imposing character, but when you finally see what he looks like, it's the lankiest, dumbest looking thing you've ever seen in your life. You're like, this is the thing that's intimidating everyone to the point where they're going to work for him for free? I'm like, nah, I don't like the design of it. I think it's really silly. Kong looks scarier than that guy does. But oh, look, he's got an axe, so he must be threatening. No. But yeah, it's fun. I like it. I mean, like I said, I do like these MonsterVerse movies, but this one just kind of felt unnecessary, or maybe should have had another couple of drafts of the screenplay before it got made, but it's going to lead into another one. Obviously, they're already working on it because this made a ton of money. So, yeah. And, like, the thing that gets me the most that really annoyed me when I was watching this is when it comes to, like, the human characters. So, you have Dan Stevens, who I think is a really good actor. He just makes a lot of really bad movies. And you have Brian Tyree Henry, who are both goofballs in this movie. Like Dan Stevens is, like, always, like, I am so glad to be in this big movie right now. This is so much fun. He's always giggling and making jokes, and Brian Tyree Henry plays off of him very well. And then you've got Rebecca Hall, who is like the exact opposite. She is so serious the entire movie, and I'm like watching it going, do you not understand the type of movie you're in? You're in a movie with a giant ape and a giant lizard who are trashing shit, and they're fighting up against another giant ape in the middle of the earth, and you're like acting like you're in a Shakespeare movie. It's like you did not understand the assignment. She just, every time she's on screen, I'm like, oh my God, can we just like move on? But the movie's okay. This was the one that I wish I got to see in the theater, but just never seemed to happen. This has been the one summer where I did not see very many films. Like during the summer, every single year, I am at the movie theater every week, seeing whatever big new movie came out that I thought looked cool. This summer, I think I saw 3 films. And I wish I went and saw this one because I ended up renting it on Amazon for like $10, and I was like, wow, I really wish I did see this in the theater, and that is Twisters. So this is a sequel to Twister. Don't let anyone make you think it's like a soft reboot, because at the beginning of the movie, they use the same Dorothy thing from the end of the first movie in it, and it turns out to be bullshit, and it doesn't work the way everyone thinks it did. And it follows around this female character here played by Daisy Edgar Jones, who I thought was fantastic and fresh, if you've ever seen that. She was trying to release the Dorothy into a tornado to get the readings that Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt were getting in the first movie for her, was it her college final or whatever it was? And everybody on her team gets killed. So she's kind of got like PTSD now and survivor's guilt. And she kind of gets roped back into going at it again by Anthony Ramos here, who was the only other person that survived from her class. And he now works for like some big company that wants to do the sort of research that she was doing before she quit. And she goes to help him, but she kind of like is real reticent about doing it because of like the PTSD and everything. And then Glenn Powell shows up, and he's this crazy cowboy character who like directly drives his truck into a tornado and like lights up fireworks into it, and like she ends up hooking up with him, and it's really well done. The characters are super likable, and it's really fun. The action scenes are great. The special effects are definitely way improved over what happened in the original film. And I really like it. Glenn Powell, I think, is a great leading man. I always thought he was good as like a side character, like in Top Gun Maverick. But like now that I've seen like at least 2 movies where he's the leading man, I'm like, he's the goods. And Daisy Edgar Jones is fantastic too. I want to see the 2 of them in more movies together because they have perfect chemistry together. And Anthony Ramos is a really good actor as well. I thought he was great in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. So I was pleasantly surprised by this and upset with myself for not getting off my ass and going to see it in the theater. And the last movie I have today is the one that took forever for me to get a copy of because of the money issues I was talking about at the beginning of the stream where, I didn't have a whole lot of money, so I had to cancel a bunch of the pre-orders that I had. And I did cancel this one saying to myself, it'll still be out there. It's going to be available forever because this is a super popular movie. So I'll just get it later. So I canceled it. Well, then this paycheck happened, and I'm like, okay, I can get it now. Go to order it off Amazon. It's not going to show up to the end of November. What? So I'm like, okay. I had it on order for about a day, and I'm like, I'm not waiting to the end of November to fucking get this movie. I can go out and get it anywhere I want. So I start going around to the Targets because Target apparently was still selling movies a month ago. Go to Target now. They have completely eliminated movies from Target, at least the ones by me. I went to 3 Targets, and none of them had any movies on physical media at all. They are done. I thought they were going to continue doing it because Best Buy gave up on it, but apparently no. They just took them a little bit longer to do what Best Buy did. So I couldn't get it out in the opening. There's no Best Buys that carry movies by me. There's no Targets, and I do not have any Walmarts near me I can go to. So I was like, fine, what am I going to do? So I check out Walmart's website, and they're like, oh yeah, if you order it now, you can get it delivered today. So I order it that day, and it was the same price it was on Amazon, and it did not show up that day. They lied to me. I actually checked the tracking number, and it said that we tried to deliver it to you, but your address was undeliverable. I'm like, excuse me. The gate does not have a lock on it. You can just walk right onto the property and drop it in the front door. Like nothing, like bullshit. You're full of shit. You just didn't want to do it. Showed up the next day though. And it's Daredevil and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine. Saw us in the theater opening weekend. Absolutely loved it. I had not laughed that much in a long time. I was cracking the fuck up the whole movie. Every meta thing that Deadpool does in this movie, I thought was the funniest damn thing I've ever heard. Like when he's told that he's like going to be like the single most important character in the Marvel universe, and he like goes, "Hang on a second." He like runs away from the person talking to him, grabs the camera, and he's like, "You hear that, Fox? Go fuck yourself!" And he headbutts the camera and breaks the lens. I was dying, and all the cameos in here are fantastic because it deals with the multiverse. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the funniest, best Marvel movie I'd seen in years. And then I go to watch it the other night, and I'm like, it's not nearly as funny as I remember it being, because now that I know all the jokes and they've been driven into the ground by memes and everything, I was watching, I think I laughed 10 times. Don't get me wrong, the movie is still good, but like not nearly as enjoyable. Maybe it was the crowd effect, having like everybody around me laughing at the same time, and, seeing Blade walk on screen for the first time in 20 years and being like, holy shit, we're here. That kind of stuff. It kind of wore off. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still my favorite of the 3 Deadpool movies, and it is still well made and funny and, action packed and everything, but it's not nearly as good as I remember it being. Like I said, it was a one-time type of thing, like watching Sixth Sense. Now that you know everything, what's the point in watching it again kind of thing? Now that all the jokes have been told and all the cameos have been revealed, is it really worth watching again? Yeah, I mean, I had fun, but I was like, not nearly as entertaining as I remember it being. And it does not have a whole lot of extras on it, which is really disappointing. So that's it for the movies. Let me get a drink real quick. Is Peter back yet? The kids don't want to go to sleep again. So, like I said, really light on the video games this month. I had one thing showed up that I ordered back in September. A couple of pre-orders that I did not want to cancel because I want to play them super bad. A replacement showed up from a boutique label, and then, like I said, this paycheck was the one where I actually had some money to spend. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to my local game store and see if they have anything worthwhile. And I found a couple things. And those two things are some NES games, one of which is Mickey Mousecapade by Capcom. This is a game, I want to say one of the first games we got for our NES when we first got it, like back in 1998 or 1988, I want to say. I can't remember when we got it. At one point I was saying 89, but then I realized, no, that couldn't have been right. It must have been 88. But yeah, this was one of the ones my brother wanted. I remember we went to a Toys R Us in Ohio when we were visiting my grandma. My grandma's like, "I'll buy you guys a game for Christmas." And she's like, "Just pick one." So my brother picked this, and I picked one of the Mega Mans, I want to say. Fester's Quest. I picked Fester's Quest. Excuse me. And Fester's Quest was the one that got played the most because this game ain't great. I do have nostalgia for it because back then, I was a kid, didn't have a job, had to rely on whatever games we had to play until we could not play them anymore. So we played the shit out of this game, even though it was not the greatest. So the reason why I was not a fan of this is the same reason why I'm not a fan of Resident Evil 0, because of this tethering bullshit that happens in this. So you'd think that you're going to play as Mickey in the name, with the name, but no, you have Minnie tagging along too. So whatever you do, Minnie kind of does at the same time. So if you jump, she jumps. You want to climb a ladder and she gets stuck on something, you're climbing the ladder and Mickey's getting her ass beat down below. And you have to go back down and get her, and then you'll probably get killed yourself. Because of that, I always found the game super frustrating to play. It's like a regular old platform where you're just kind of like climbing ladders and going from stage to stage, trying to find items you need to complete the level and all that. But the tethering thing just pisses me off to no end. But, like I said, played the crap out of this, even though we weren't really enjoying it. So I kind of have nostalgia for it. And I was like, well, when I saw it at the store, I'm like, well, even though I don't think it's the greatest thing ever, I do want it in my collection because trying to collect all the games that I had as a youth, in my youth. So that was definitely one of them. So I have to have it. You can kind of see the game play there. It's like I said, it's a platformer. Not a great one. It was an early Capcom game, so you don't expect them to be knocking it out of the park off the bat. And then the other game they had there that I've been trying to find forever, but it's always too expensive or beat to hell or, missing something or whatever. And it was not a great price when I bought it, but I'm like, you know what? Just get it and get it over with and get it in the collection so I have to worry about it anymore because I'm sick of looking for it and then getting disappointed when I find it and it's not complete or beat up or whatever. It turned out it's also Captain America. What the hell is wrong with me? Captain Algebra is one of his favorite license games. And that is Back to the Future from LJN. I rented this back in the day, and I kind of had the same reaction to it that I had when my brother and I rented the Uncanny X-Men for the NES, where we played it for a good 10 minutes and turned it off and brought it right back to the game store or the video store that we rented it from. Where we're like, what the hell is this shit? This sucked. What the hell when did Marty McFly run down the street throwing bowling balls at things? And bees. When were bees a thing? Like, this is stupid. But that was as far as we ever got. And now watching people stream it all the time, watching or hearing Captain Algebra talk about it all the time, like it's one of his favorite games, and it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. And like, I've kind of gotten the urge to give it a second shot. And I did. I kind of emulated it and played it a little while. I'm like, okay, yeah, this still kind of sucks, but it's not like terrible like I remember it being. So I want to beat it. I want to play through it. There's a bunch of different like play styles in it. So the first stage is you moving vertically through the streets of Hill Valley, and there's all these obstacles in your way, and you're basically trying to get through it without getting hit by anything. There's bees, there's guys moving back and forth with panes of glass. There's like skateboarders or something. I can't remember exactly what else kind of obstacle was, but that's the whole point. Is just get from the bottom of the screen to the top and not get hit and die. Then you're in like the malt shop from the 1950s part of the movie, and you're throwing milkshakes at the bad guys that are coming at you to knock them out. And then you're playing the guitar at the concert at the end of the movie, and you have to like catch the musical notes or something like that by depending on where you have the guitar position and what direction you're facing. And then like the last thing you do is try to get sent back to the future in the DeLorean and hit like the 88 miles per hour and the lightning bolt at the same time while traveling vertically up another screen. It's all right. It's nothing great, but I love licensed games. I had to have this. I have Back to the Future for the or Back to the Future 2 for the Master System as well, so why not have this? I was considering trying to get all the LJN games complete in box if I can. Some of them are expensive, and I dread the day where I actually have to fork up money for the Uncanny X-Men. No. So, months and months and months ago, Limited Run kind of fucked everybody in the butthole when they decided that it was a good idea to release a burned copy of a game as one of their limited release games, even though they had said that it was going to be professionally, like a real disc, not like some CDR kind of bullshit. And that was D for the 3DO. D is one of my all-time favorite games on the 3DO. And it's I would say it's a point-and-click adventure, but it's kind of like playing Myst. It's like a graphic adventure. Kind of like Dragon's Lair, kind of, but horror. And I absolutely loved it. And I've been trying to find a box for my actual 3DO copy that I have for years, and I can never find it. And I don't want to have to buy it all over again if I don't have to. So when Limited Run was like, we're going to make like an official, new run of the game, I was like, perfect. Let's do it. And then it turns out that they just ripped the game onto CDRs and sent that out, hoping nobody will notice. I don't even think they tested the game because everybody was saying, why can't we play our copy of D on our actual 3DOs? It's because that system doesn't play burned games, dumbasses. So they didn't lie. It is a professionally burned disc. Shut up. So when everybody rebelled online and like started giving the shit, they're like, okay, we didn't realize. Yeah, you knew what you were doing. You're just trying to steal our money away and give us something cheap in return. Eat a dick. So they were forced to go and actually have professionally made discs, as a replacement. And I finally got mine in the mail, and it came just like this. So I now have the burned ones, the shitty ones, and I have the real ones. I have the real one in the box. This is actually the shitty CDR one. You can kind of see. But the real one, the new one, the replacement is actually in the box that they came in. And I think I just broke this. No, it just came unhooked. God damn. Whatever, I'll fix it later. And they give us a cheap-ass piece of shit. Is that what this is? Oh, there you go. I fixed it. So, yeah. Finally got it. And then only took them, I don't know how long. And I sent them so many emails saying, like, is there a... I remember they released, like, a statement saying, yeah, we're going to do it. We'll get back to you, was, like, what the statement was. We're going to do it, but we'll let you know. So I remember I sent at least 3 emails asking them, like, is there a plan? Is there a expected date I can expect this? Are you even going to do it? Or do you just say that bullshit in order to appease everybody that you pissed off? And then out of nowhere, it's like, you got a shipping confirmation. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess they're doing it. And then last month, I ordered a repro of a Japanese-only Sega Saturn game from, what's it called? Pipe Dreams Games, which is on Instagram. If you're a Sega Saturn collector, highly recommend looking this guy up. He does quality work. And I was telling his name is Chris also. The Vita version of Bird King. Which one is that? Bird King. I'm not familiar with that. So Chris Piper is the guy who runs the Pipe Dreams Games. He put a picture up on his Instagram profile saying, like, oh, look, I made, like, he makes the custom manuals. He makes the manuals himself. He makes the custom artwork for the discs. He makes the custom artwork for the backing of the games. And he was like, here's all the new ones I've worked on. I've created the artwork for it and made the discs. One of them was Police Knots, but he wanted like $85 for it. And I was like, I'll wait. But the one that caught my eye is because it's not really a licensed game, but it's live action. So it's like a full motion video game. It's kind of like Phantasmagoria or what's that one called? Gabriel Knight, like those old PC games that were like computer graphics mixed with live action stuff. And it's called Frankenstein Through the Eyes of the Monster. And it stars fucking Tim Curry. When I saw Tim Curry's face on this artwork that he posted on Instagram, I was like, I need that right fucking now. And I was like, dude, give that to me. I want it right now. And he's like, okay, do you need a box? Or do you just want me to ship you the back artwork, the manual, and the disc? I'm like, just send me that stuff because I have backup cases for this, like the big oversized jewel cases. I have a box of them in my closet. So it took him like a month to get it to me, which is fine because this looks fantastic. So here's the manual. All the information you need. It's got the story, everything it pulls from, and then a big thing about Tim Curry in the back. Tim Curry is awesome. Space! Oh, man, I need to play Command and Conquer just so I can watch that again. I'm going to space! And they even have another picture of him on the back, too. The guy's in love with Tim Curry. You got a professional looking disc. I mean, it looks like an actual Sega Saturn disc. No joke. And then on the back, you've got the artwork or the pictures of the gameplay. And like I said, it looks like Phantasmagoria or Gabriel Knight, where it's like everything in the frame is mostly computer generated, and you've just got like a guy standing up against the blue screen pretending to interact with everything and each other. So it's like a point-and-click graphic adventure game. This is between life and death, man and monster, lies the true test of the human heart. Tim Curry delivers a wondrously complex and richly constructed role as Dr. Frankenstein that will leave you in stitches. Adventure gaming combines with character interaction and puzzle solving to create a challenging and emotionally driven experience. An easy-to-use interface that will have gamers of all levels playing in minutes. The game is state-of-the-art, stunning. Okay, that doesn't make sense. The game is state-of-the-art, stunning, featuring live actors, digitized speech, and extremely realistic 3D environments. Digitized sound effects are accompanied by stirring music that reflects both the situation and setting. Okay, whatever. So, had to have that because full motion videos are my jam. They're like a guilty pleasure of mine. And one starring Tim Curry. I cannot wait to watch him overact in this too. Here's a game that I ordered last month, and it showed up right after my stream ended for the recent pickups in September. So from August and September that I did last month. Like I did my stream, and the moment the stream ended, I got a notification from Amazon saying your package has arrived. And I was like, son of a bitch. So this showed up the night of that stream, and I did not get to show it off. But that is Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom for the Switch. TJ, you got a copy of this, right? Right. So this is done in the same sort of style as the Link's Awakening remake that came out on the Switch a few years ago, which I never played the Game Boy Link's Awakening, either the color one or the black and white one. So playing it on the Switch was the first time I'd ever played it, and I was like all in. I really liked the way that the graphics were made to look like toys, like everything had a plasticky sheen to it, and I thought it was really interesting. The puzzles were sometimes challenging, sometimes a pushover, doesn't matter, but like I really got into it. Like I was determined to beat that game, and I did, and I absolutely loved it. The ending is fantastic and everything. Great gameplay. So when I saw they're making like another game in that style, but this time you're playing as Zelda, I was like, yep, I got my money, motherfuckers. And I did. I need to play it. I know Captain Algebra's already beaten it. No, a bunch of people have already beaten it. They say it's just as much fun. So really looking forward to it. I'm probably going to play it after I play Astrobot, which I did show off in last month's stream. So yeah, I hope to beat this by the end of the year. And if it's anything like the Link's Awakening remake, I think I'm going to have a good time. No. I'm just messing with you, bro. Okay, and then we have these two, which were kind of expensive, but I had pre-ordered them like months ago, and they finally showed up. One of them I could have had a year ago, but Square fucked everyone over on this one. So I'm just going to say it. It's the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 collection, like the Pixel Remaster collection. So I could have had this for the Switch a long time ago, because it's available on Play Asia. It's like $80, but I was like, I need to have it, but I did not want to play it on the Switch. I wanted to play it on something else. So Square Enix released this on their website and the Switch version on the same day, and they only had limited quantities, and the PlayStation 4 version sold out like instantly. And everyone bought it just so they could resell it on fucking eBay. So all of a sudden, everybody's like, there's copies of it on eBay going for $150, and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm doing that. And then I hear that they're selling it on Play Asia, so I go to Play Asia. There's no PS4 version. There's only the Switch version, and I was so desperate to have this. I was like about ready to buy it on a system I did not want to play it on, but I kept on saying to myself, like I had this voice in the back of my head saying, "Don't do it." Eventually, they're going to re-release it because they like money. They're going to print more at some point, and you're going to get it, and it's not going to be a big deal. And I'm like, all right, fine. Then, like 2 months ago or whatever, I got a text message from Church the Game Grinder saying, "Hey, that Pixel Remaster is coming out for PS4 finally, like as a wide release. You can just get it off of Amazon." Well, he goes, at first he said you can get it on the Square Enix website. And the thing was, at the time that happened, I did not exactly have enough money to cover it in my bank account. So I was like, I'll pre-order it. And hopefully they do things the same way that Amazon does, where they don't take your money until they ship. So I go to Square Enix and I order it, or I pre-order it, and then they're like, "Okay, we're gonna start shipping on so and so date. Your card will be charged on this day." I'm like, "Nope, that's not gonna work." Cancel the order immediately. And then Church is like, "Oh, it's also on Amazon, so you can just go to Amazon and get it." So I go to Amazon and pre-order it, and sure enough, here we are. So this has Final Fantasies 1 through 6 that are basically pixel remasters of the original games. I do believe these are based on the mobile phone versions that came out like years ago, where it's kind of like part 3D and part 2D, kind of like the way Octopath Traveler looks, I guess. So Final Fantasy IV is my favorite RPG, or I want to say one of two of my, like they tie, favorite RPGs of all time. So I want to have every copy I can possibly get of that game. I have it on the Super Nintendo. I have it on the PlayStation 1. I have it on the PSP. The PSP has like a special edition. It has extra stuff in it. I definitely want to get the version of it on the Game Boy Advance, and now I have this. So absolutely had to have it. So Anniversary Edition includes pixel character sticker sheets. Ooh! Only thing is, this was kind of expensive. This was like $70. I think they're based on the mobile versions, if I remember correctly. That was one of the things people were complaining about. But then everybody played them and they're like, never mind. And the other one that I got this month was also kind of expensive, but I didn't want to pass it up. I didn't want to cancel my pre-order because there was like a super limited edition version available on limited run games, and they wanted a ton of money for it. And I'm like, I do not want to pay $200 for this damn thing. I just want the damn game. I don't need all this extra bullshit you're trying to package it with. I just want the game. And luckily, same situation with the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters was I'm glad I waited, because eventually it just popped up on Amazon, and I was like, okay, I'll get it that way. And that is Alan Wake 2. This is the deluxe edition, so this also comes with Alan Wake Remastered, a digital code to play the original remaster of Alan Wake. And it also has all of the DLC, like the Night Springs expansion, the Lake House expansion, and deluxe edition cosmetics. So the first Alan Wake was one of my favorite like horror games of all time. Like I was playing that on my 360, and I was actually calling out of work to play it. The day that I was getting close to the end, I remember playing it before I went to work at like 3 a.m. and then going, you know what? I'm not going to bed. I'm just going to keep on playing this. I'm going to call out of work and say I'm sick. And I just ended up sitting there and playing it all day until I beat the damn game. Absolutely loved it. So it's about a writer whose wife has disappeared, and he goes to like this lake house where they used to go all the time. And like the town just starts to go absolutely crazy. Like everyone's like possessed by like a darkness, and the darkness can be driven out of everybody if you like hit them with light somehow. And then you can actually kill them with a gun. And it turns out to be this whole psychological thing that's really going on. It is nuts. Everything's presented kind of like a television show where like you finish a chapter of the game and it's like the next one begins. It's like last time on Alan Wake. And they give you like snippets of what had just happened in the previous section of the game. It's really cool the way it's presented. And I ended up loving it. I was like, it's one of my favorite things ever. So when they announced Alan Wake 2, I was all over it until I realized it was going to be a digital-only game. And I called some bullshit. I was like, you guys suck. Can we just get physical editions and digital editions at the same time? Like, what is the holdup? I do not understand this. Well, it took like over a year for it to come to physical, which is some BS. But at least we got it now, right? Right? I can't wait to play it. It looks fantastic. I've watched footage, gameplay of it and everything, and I love everything that I'm seeing. And it won like Game of the Year, or was nominated Game of the Year at the Game Awards or whatever last year. So, I got to play it. I'm probably going to play it after I play through Legend of Zelda. And that is it for this stream. Pretty short. Almost an hour and a half long. And for just this amount of things, I can talk to no end, guys. I can run my mouth for a long time. Apparently so. So, thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I'll be back tomorrow, even though it's Halloween, but nobody trick-or-treats on actual Halloween. Now everything happens the weekend before or after. So I don't have I'm not feeling bad about streaming on a holiday, even though it's not really a holiday. So I'll be back tomorrow night with the next film collection live stream. It's going to be everything in my 4K collection that starts with the letter S. That's why I did the stream tonight, so it wouldn't interfere with that. So I did this tonight. Otherwise, I would have done it. If I wasn't going to do the live stream tomorrow night, I would have done this tomorrow. I did finally release the new Dungeons and Dragons episode, the Tides of Flame episode on my channel on like Sunday. And I also released a new episode of the Movie Starting podcast on Monday. So there's those new things if you want to check those out. And I'll also be streaming my new episode of Dungeons and Dragons that we're going to stream live on Twitch on Saturday afternoon. So twitch.tv/statblock20 if you're interested in that. And I will see you hopefully tomorrow if you have the time. So thanks everyone again for coming out and hanging. I will talk to you later. Stay safe out there. Chris of Midlife Crisis Media out.